Calaroga Shark Media.
Hey there, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. WrestleVotes.com has some intel on what went down at the Roast of WrestleMania hosted by Tony Hinchcliffe. They wrote 2 hours of jokes that included some sexual puns and F-bombs. Paul Heyman stole the show. Triple H ended the night with a surprise appearance. Linda McMahon was in attendance. Don't hold your breath for this to ever make air. WrestlingNews.co said Paul Heyman was incredible. Tony Hinchcliffe had everybody rolling. This was so much fun. Cell phones were put in pouches for good reason. LOL. I doubt this makes it to TV. Stuff was wild. The show took place after WrestleMania Night 2. WrestleVotes says the show was 2 hours long. The New York Times had a cover piece about Nate Bargatze. Now, I'm seeing here with Nate exactly what happened with Nikki Glaser last year. Really good support team. The PR's out there. You know, we heard that Nate was going to host the Emmys. In parallel with that, there's this big thing with the New York Times. Now, that didn't just happen overnight. So the press machine is out for Nate. I shared the article in the Facebook group, which is Daily Comedy News Podcast Group. There's also a podcast version of the interview if you'd like to listen to yourself. The New York Times asked Nate how he got so big. Nate said, talking about relatable things and authenticity. Not that I'm going out for authenticity, but you're in a world where you have the Wickeds and Avengers movies, and that's great. But there's not a regular person on a screen anymore. Movies used to be like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and Home Alone. That's a regular guy in the movie that you enjoy watching. It's easier to take in, and you don't always want to be thought-provoked. That's something I've tried to stay clear of. I need you to be able to come and trust that you're going to get the entertainment that I'm showing you, that I'm selling you. And I'm talking about myself, and I'm making fun of myself with the materials written for you. I'm not doing it to make myself look good. I'm doing it to make you laugh. You can either laugh with me or at me. You relate to it, or you think I'm an idiot. Either way, I'm here to entertain you. As for his style, Nate said, most of the comics I was around were the complete opposite of everything I did. I had to learn how to do what I was doing in those rooms, but I didn't want you to notice that I was clean, right? I talked about that on Saturday with Andy Woodhull. It's 1 a.m, and these people are drunk, and how can I do this material that's not sexual or whatever everybody else was doing? You learn how to hide it, because if you walked up and said, I'm clean, it's going to be like, nah, this guy's not cool. Exactly what Andy said. The Times was curious about Nate's evolving look in the last 6 or 7 years. You've changed your look. You got a different haircut. You grew the beard, mustache, started dressing a little cooler, lost some weight. Nate said, yeah. Kid Show Business showed up and goes, hey, fatso, if you want to make it, you better get your life together. No one asked me to do anything. As a comic, you're you. You're talking about yourself, so you're going to be you. But I wanted to do it. I'm going through it right now. I do not have great eating habits. I eat a lot of fast food and chain food. Didn't get in the way. I stopped drinking in 2018 because I knew if I wanted to get where I wanted as a comic, this was going to be the way. I've realized that with food, too. If I want to do stand-up at this high level, possibly make movies, I have to put in the effort to handle all this touring and the mentality it takes to stay focused. I always say I'm looking forward to the day you can't see my nipples through my shirt. That's what we're all working towards. Amen, brother. Tim Dillon spoke to Fox News Digital. The premise from Fox News Digital that was comedy was moving to the right. Dillon said, when people call it a rightward shift, my pushback to that is, were these statements rightward in 2015 or 2005? When did they become right-wing statements? When did it become a right-wing statement to say, I should have the bodily autonomy to not take an experimental vaccine? When did it become a right-wing statement to say, I don't think the U.S. should be in wars? I remember those were left-wing statements. When did it become a right-wing statement to say that the United States should look after the middle class and workers instead of importing cheap labor so that the profits on Wall Street could go up? Those are right-wing points? This is the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. I think the parties flip, but I think they might flip again. This could happen again, where the Republican Party becomes anti-free speech and the Democratic Party becomes pro-free speech. It could happen again. It certainly flipped during the last election cycle, when the Democratic Party was the pro-war, kind of anti-speech, seemingly pro-corporate party. But if we go to war with Iran, start supporting people that wrote op-eds critical of Israel, then you'll see the Republican Party is now the pro-war, anti-free speech party. So you actually have to just believe in principles, and you have to hold the people that you've elected to account. You can't follow the people you've elected. Otherwise, you're just in a personality cult. You're not a free-thinking person. You have to say, I have a belief. The belief is we shouldn't do this. And if we do that, whoever it is, Kamala, Trump, Bernie, whoever, you have to hold them to account and say, I don't think this is good for America. A lot of Tim Dillon press. Got some more stuff coming up from later in the week, but he is out there making the rounds. And apparently the cable news networks have discovered he's a really good guest, because he's got that great mix of doing the talk show thing combined with great jokes. As I've said before, I love Tim's podcast, and then someday he is going to step on a landmine. I can see it coming, and then I'm going to deny that I ever told you that I liked his podcast. I'm such a coward. I could be like, Tim Dillon, never heard of him. Michael Costa told the Last Laugh podcast that when we did the guest hosting thing on The Daily Show where every celebrity came in and hosted, we really learned that many celebrities can't read a teleprompter. I mean, some were not treating it as we felt was a very important, funny, coveted position. And by the way, nobody was like mean or terrible, but you're just going, man, I grew up on the show. The show's the foundation of who I am. Don't half-ass this, please. Thankfully, the network finally said, these correspondents really give a hoot about the show. Canadian comedian James Mullenger has joined the list of comedians who won't come to the United States. James has canceled a planned show in Maine next month. He told the CBC, I love my job, but not so much that I want to be locked up for 2 weeks, although it would probably make for good material, but my wife needs me at home. If I didn't have people dependent on me, I'd possibly take the risk. Mullinger had the venue and date booked, his paperwork in order, but says it seemed risky to make the trip to Maine. It just felt like not the right time. I didn't want to get swept up in either misinformation or propaganda or necessarily believing everything you hear, but it just seemed risky hearing the performers being locked up, even though they're there with the correct paperwork. Have I missed a story? Are there performers being locked up? I've missed that. I kind of feel if a comedian were locked up, I probably would have mentioned it on the show. Maybe I'm forgetful. Mullinger said Canadians need to support homegrown comedians. By the way, he's a Brit who moved to Canada. Canadians can do their part this summer. When they're deciding what comedy shows to go to, choose Canadian performers. There are Canadian comedy festivals booking solely American comedians. Let's treat Canadian comedians the same way we treat Canadian food, embrace them, and support them. Big Jay Oakerson dropped a special on YouTube over the weekend. It's called Them They. Decider caught up with Big Jay. Decider asked, for somebody who hasn't seen your work, what should they expect? Big Jay said, for me as a comedian, I'd say it's always going to be dirty. You can always expect it's going to be dirty in some capacity. That was the comedy I was drawn to when I was younger so much. What I try to say is it's palatable dirty. When I first started being dirty when I was younger, it was definitely for shock, because you get a reaction out of people when you do dirty stuff, whether they like it or not. But over the years, because it was kind of the comedy that I was always drawn to myself, I was like, how could I do it? So there's a strong chance that if you bring your 60-year-old mother with you, she still likes it somehow. This is a crowd work special. Jay said, I knew it was going to be no material and all crowd work, which if you tell the crowd that, the crowd knows what they're there for, so the crowds are much more forgiving. That was the easiest prep. There was nothing to do besides get the stage the way we wanted, the lighting and everything, but that was the beauty of it. It doesn't spend any of my material. I don't have to write a new hour of stuff. I've learned that if you ask people enough questions, you find that everyone's weird, and the people who are purposely weird to be noticed tend not to be the most interesting people. John Oliver hit the Mets game. SNY TV's field reporter Steve Gelbs started interviewing John Oliver. Oliver's excited about the Mets' hot start, telling Steve Gelbs, this is amazing. I can't quite believe it's happening. It doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like we're allowed to have this many nice things in one place. I hope everything is going to stay like this forever, ideally. Steve Gelbs asked John Oliver about the production cycle of the show. Oliver said, it's changed a little bit because in slower news times, we can do that slower cooking. We're still trying to do that, but when things hypothetically speaking are happening, like a president suggesting sending American citizens overseas to foreign gulags, yeah, that probably feels like something you need to address as soon as possible. So yes, we're working at 2 speeds right now, our regular speed and then crash shows, unfortunately. One Twitter user posted, John Oliver, a typical leftist hack with severe TDS who randomly has to bring up more lies on a Sunday afternoon on the Mets broadcast. 2 stories that I lightly mentioned yesterday and my voice was giving out and I promised you I'd talk about them. Akatska will have a special on Hulu on June 13th. The special is part of their super secretive, hilarious comedy initiative that the publicists don't want to tell comedy podcasts about. But we find out anyway. You cannot keep the truth from daily comedy news. Akatska will explore themes of adulthood, marriage, and the absurdity of everyday life in Father. In Father, she deals with the realities of being an adult who still struggles with life's basics, from skipping laundry for 7 years to discovering that weddings require marriage licenses. I also had mentioned Tina Fey commented on the possibility of Tina Fey replacing Lorne Michaels as the head of SNL. In 2024, Lorne said Tina could easily do the job herself. Tina Fey told The Hollywood Reporter. That was very nice of him to say, and I love him very much. He's irreplaceable. His set of gifts and skills are entirely unique. His eye for talent. He's one of the last 3 people in show business who actually understand everything. I'll leave it at that. Bowen Yang jumped in on the whole Amy Lou Wood SNL controversy. Remember, Amy didn't like Sarah Sherman's portrayal of her. Yang told Extra, however she reacted to the sketch is completely valid. With parody, you kind of forget the sort of human, emotional cost that it sort of extols on someone. You need these reminders every now and then that parody can go too far sometimes and that we as comedians can take accountability for that instead of banging our foot and saying, we should be allowed to say whatever we want. Everyone at SNL is just a fan of the show, obviously a fan of her. We just think that she should be so proud of the work she put into this season. Brett Goldstein is comparing Ted Lasso's season 4 renewal to a dead cat. He told a story to NPR. I have a friend that I went to university with, and I think about this a lot. He had a cat that died. He loved his cat. The cat was run over, and they buried the cat. He was a child. They buried the cat in the garden, and he lay in the bed so sad, upset and crying, and he prayed and prayed, and he wished that the cat would come back. And then the cat did come back. It turned out the cat they buried wasn't their cat. And I think about that all the time. Brett added, and so I'm like, no wonder this guy's effed in the head, because he thinks death isn't real. So of course he's insane. He's such a weird guy, because he thinks he could bring things back from the dead. Aaron posted in the Facebook group, which is Daily Comedy News Podcast Group. Feel encouraged to join us and participate. I particularly welcomed this comment as I wrote in the group. I woke up at 1:30 in the morning. I had a nightmare. And when you have a nightmare, your system's like racing, and I needed to just play on my phone to calm the heck down. Aaron wrote, more on the Abu Dhabi comedy season. It's not a festival because it's spread across several months and they're all arena shows. Good point. She pointed out you can also go see Toto the band, not the dog. Aaron writes, Chappelle isn't on sale yet, but his best tickets are going for 1,250 dirhams, I think. And for reference, 100 dirhams is about $27 US. So I'd have to multiply there. I'm too lazy to do that. I have Google. Let's see. Right now, as I record this, Google is telling me that's about $340 to go see Dave Chappelle. Wow. Aaron writes, I also note Joe Coy is using gadget-free pouches, probably so no one can record any of his lame jokes and then beat them to death for 2 years. I particularly like that comment. But Aaron points out that, yonder pouches are annoying, but having attended a couple shows at the Arena Without Pouches, I can confirm that audiences here are rude and shameless with their devices to the point of almost ruining shows. Aaron's planning on grabbing last-minute tickets for Trevor Noah. Very cool. Thank you for checking in with that. It is festival season. The Sydney Comedy Festival is underway. We'll dive in on that a little bit more tomorrow. Being honest here, I'm wiped out. I woke up on Monday and I saw the Pope had passed away. And here at the company, we have a podcast series called White Smoke about the papal succession. So my morning, I got up. It was about 6:20 in the morning, checked my phone. I saw that happen, but I was half out of it. I'm like, let me make sure that actually happened. It wasn't just a tweet. That's not a mistake you want to make. So I went on the New York Times website, and they had it in like 36-point font. I read the story, went on Washington Post. You want to confirm things at two sources. They also had it in 36-point font. So I'm like, okay, this is real. So I spent the morning, we had some episodes scheduled. For example, they were going to canonize the Millennial Saint on this upcoming weekend, so I had to park that episode to make sure that doesn't automatically run. Write a script for a new episode. We already had in the can the Pope obit, so I turned that loose. Wrote a new episode, wrote some promos. I'm trying to build a company here, so I got to hit the trades, tell them we're up to all this. So it's been an exhausting morning. So Sydney Comedy Festival can wait. I'm trying to get back to Ireland. Maybe I can hit up the Cat Laughs Comedy Festival. It is Ireland's longest running and best loved comedy festival, May 23rd to the 25th. Cat Laughs is coming to Belfast for the first time. The Guardian calls it the best little comedy festival in the world. Your lineup, Friday, May 23rd, Colin Murphy, Paddy Raff, Mark McCartney, Deidre O'Kane, David O'Doherty. Some good, solid Irish names there. Oh, then there's an interval, and then Gerald Farrelly, Emma Duran, Alison Spittle, and Neil Delamere. On Saturday, Carl Spain, William Thompson, Susie McCabe, Mike Rice, Colin Geddes, Sean Walsh, Deonna Doherty, Vlad Illich. That doesn't sound like an Irish name at all. Vittorio Angeloni. What's going on here? Sunday, Andrew Ryan, Chris Kent, Kyla Cobbler, Ray Bradshaw, and Scott Bennett. Not Scott Beckett, the guy that doesn't like the Joe Coy joke. This is a totally different person. This is comedian Scott Bennett, who probably appreciates the humor behind the Joe Coy joke. Christopher MacArthur Boyd, Shane Todd, Rich Hall, and Patty McDonnell. John, why'd you do that story? Because I want to go back to Ireland. I felt like reading a bunch of Irish names. I also would love to hit the Arctic Comedy Festival. This one is coming to Yellowknife on May 17th, Dawson City on May 21st, and Whitehorse on May 23rd. You can go see Mary Walsh, one of Canada's most memorable comedians. The festival tells us Walsh delivers in a unique and memorable way that will leave you in tears. And one more story. This is not a commercial. I just saw a press release on the newswires, and I appreciate Pretzelized. I just like the copy they wrote. Pretzelized, the innovative snack brand known for combining pretzels with classic snacks like crackers and pita chips, launching a social-first, fully produced sketch comedy series. It stars New York City comedians Eric Newman and Mark Gerber. The series features two friends on opposite sides of the chip debate across 4 scripted, increasingly dramatic episodes. It's not just a series, it's your new favorite internet debate. One that invites consumers to pick a side, take it way too seriously, and make their snack options known. That's right, it's Pretzelized. Good job, copywriter. They invite us to join the Pretzelution. That's your comedy news for today. If you're on YouTube, whatever you YouTube guys do, look, I'm an old man in the basement. I'm trying to figure this out. So, like, subscribe, ring the bell. I know it's a slideshow. What do you want to see? A 55-year-old guy in his basement talking into a microphone? That's boring. Enjoy my slideshow. Appreciate it. Takes me a couple minutes to make. See you tomorrow.